Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Sky Fantasy Football. My name's Suj.
My name's James, and what Suj is trying to tell you is that we're not going to win FPL this year, like last year, like next year, like any year. But we're here and we're having a good time.
Oh man, Sky was a much better week this week. I actually had almost half my team is identical in both games, yet I still ended up smashing that and not this, which is funny. But you know, it's been a painful week in FPL for me, and an average week I would say in FPL for you. Give everybody a rundown of how you did. Let's talk about it a little, and then let's talk about the ridiculous game week that just had 44 goals in 10 matches.
Shall do. 62 minus 4 for myself for a game week of 58, game week rank of 2.7 million. It's average, couldn't be, well, it's actually 1 point less than average. Yeah. Clean sheet for Matt Ryan. Trent Robertson is probably one of the few people around who had 3 clean sheets this week. Nice 10-pointer from Mateus Pereira. Assist for captain Aubameyang. Goal for Chris Wood. Couple of goals for Danny Ings is my game week. Interestingly, and I think there's a lesson in this, I took a -4 for Bruno Fernandes and Anthony Martial, who obviously blanked and did feckle against Crystal Palace. They were well beaten.
Yep. And
having sold Sadio Mane and Mikel Antonio, I would, had I done nothing, finish this game week on 80 points. But what's interesting, because a lot of people in my ear going, are you going to wild card? You're going to wild card? All right, look, I've had one really shit week and I've had one average week. And of my starting lineup next week, I've got 9 players in it who have returned in the week just gone from what I'm going to rejiggle and the players that I'm signing and stuff. So I'm very chilled out, happy to take a -4. There's so much fear at the moment in terms of early wildcard. I think so much of it is based on fear on value. This player's going to go up in price. I've got to get him now. Or I've got this player and he's going to lose value. I've got to sell him now. The most important thing for me at the end of the game week will be the points I get. Mm-hmm. And I'm absolutely convinced, because my opinion, as I've warned pre-game week 1, opinions will change a couple of times. My opinions are going to change a couple of times more in the next few weeks as well. Yep. Because 2 game weeks is not enough data to have a good understanding of what you're going to do, in my opinion, for the next 14, 15 game weeks.
We talked about that after game week 1. 1 game week not enough data. Are we going to keep kicking that can forward after 3 game weeks and say 3 game weeks is not enough, or 4 game weeks is not enough? But I hear what you're saying. This week happened to also be a freak game week from a football point of view.
Absolutely.
I think the average number of goals in a Premier League game is 2.8 or something like that.
Roughly.
Here we're looking at 4.4. The other interesting thing that I saw on a lot of Twitter accounts was people comparing their scores without either the Salah captaincy haul or a Kane captaincy haul or what have you, and they're pretty identical. It's been a case in the first 2 game weeks where 1 or 2 players have popped off big time. We're talking hat-tricks, braces, assists, the lot. 4 goals if you're Heung-min Son.
Or 4 assists if you're Harry Kane.
Yeah,
and a goal.
And a goal, which has ended up skewing the stat. And there is as many people in the boat of not owning any of these players that have popped off that haven't had such a good game week. But it's got to at some point level off. I had a game week where I had 4 returners, one of which got me a double return. Unfortunately, it wasn't my captain. And ended up on 44 points. Robertson and Trent, like you, picked me up clean sheet points, and Trent picked up a bonus as well. Salah didn't get me anything. Danny Ings 2 goals, and Antonio got me the 1 goal. I had Kieran Tierney drop to the bench because of his warm-up hurt thigh type shit that's going on. Proved to be a difficult week, but I look at it and I think Salah was 1-on-1 with the keeper right at the end of the game, and for once in his life, Kepa pulled out a save. Like 9 times out of 10, he bangs that in. That's another 10 points.
He kept it out, I suppose.
He kept it out. Timo Werner obviously won the penalty, and Jorginho, lollipop, hop, skip, trip. I don't know what the hell he was doing with that, but
same thing he does all the time. Just Alisson saved it.
It wasn't good. It wasn't a good penalty, and actually, to be fair, it was also a good.
It was a good save.
Yeah, but Werner could have picked me up an assist there, and suddenly I'm into the 60 points, and I'm fine. But yeah, so I'm with you. I don't think it's necessarily any time to panic. Although now I have St. Maximin's flagged and Kieran Tierney's flagged. I think Tierney's going to be okay for the Liverpool game. Whether or not I play him anyway is something to consider. And St. Maximin is flagged and is something that I need to deal with.
I think the thing is, you only have to look after game week 1 and look at some of the names that were mass sold. Mitrovic, 2 goals. Danny Ings, 2 goals.
Sadio
Trent,
Mane.
clean sheet. Sadio Mane, Heung-min Son, Harry Kane, who... And don't get me
You
wrong.
probably mentioned the 6 most sold players there.
You would have probably close to. I don't know the numbers. But all those players, including myself selling Mane for Fernandes, which was always my plan, nobody turned around to me and go, James, you made a mistake here. But the flip is, one game week, that's kind of why I went for Mane in the first instance over Salah, because I know on any given game week, Mane can outscore him, as proven on Sunday at Chelsea. I just feel like there's so much knee-jerk happening at the moment, and my advice would be calm down. There's people DMing me on Saturday going, oh my God, James, should I wildcard? I've only got 18 points. Mate, you got 6 players ain't played yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Calm down, relax, chill. So I just feel, particularly for those on Twitter, you see the noise of, this person's doing well. You don't really hear the stories so much of those doing bad, except for shout out to a few people who've had really bad weeks who put it out there for jokes and banter. I'm all for that, by the way. So the recommendation is calm, and I had a strategy pre-game week 1, and I'm sticking to it. My overall rank is about 4 million, so you shouldn't necessarily take my advice, but I'm definitely sticking to my plan, and I know that green arrows will follow.
Yeah, it's just the case of...
It can't get worse than that. I know that.
Yeah. In terms of whether or you should or shouldn't wildcard, we're now recording on Tuesday, and if you have already pulled the trigger on your wildcard, us turning around and saying don't wildcard and don't panic is not really going to help you because you've already pulled the trigger on it. And if you haven't pulled the trigger on the wildcard by Tuesday and by now, I don't think you're likely to want to pull the wildcard out in the second half of the week. So whether or not it's the right thing to do or not the right thing to do, it's almost done in my mind. Whether you've made the decision to do it or don't, we're not here to tell you whether to or not. But when we run down all of the games, if nothing else, we might give you a few pointers on what we've seen from the matches that we think might guide your decisions on who to and who maybe not to go with. And once we get to the end of the games, as always, we'll try and get through a few Twitter questions.
We're going to try and explain some things during this one, which I think is going to hopefully point people into the understanding what could happen next, rather than worrying about what's happened previously,
yes.
For example.
Yeah, I mean, Son's not going to score 4 goals again. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's unlikely to score a hat-trick again, that kind of thing. So
it's not a case of that. It's more a case of looking at the fixtures they've got coming up at these guys and knowing nobody's going to be as dumb as Southampton and play that higher line against us again.
No.
That's the first thing. So every one of Son's goals came the same way. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, what's he got this game week? Is it Palace? There'd be loads of room for him in the penalty box, wouldn't there? Brighton afterwards, paper looks great. What are they, about 8 undefeated away from home now?
Yep.
It's not so clever. No. They're a good side.
They've been playing very well. So
there's certain things just to be cautious of. The flip of that is as well, those who've done badly. We spoke about this on Clash of the Correspondents yesterday with Gary and Sam about Brighton and Man United and saying, all right, that was bad on Saturday, but they'll get more space, oddly enough, against Brighton.
Yeah, I shout out to that podcast. I mean, Sam was spot on that they actually did better against Manchester United with Houghton in charge, where he played defensively and cut out the space than with Graham Potter, who pushes them forward. So if you haven't listened to that already, I do recommend listening to Clash of the Correspondents with those two. I actually really enjoy listening to both of them. Sam's so passionate about Brighton. I mean, he watches them home and away pretty much every game.
No one's doing that anymore, mate.
Oh, well,
Listen,
okay.
By the way,
you know what I mean.
Bad news. Forget football fans in stadiums this season.
Yeah,
Forget it.
Not looking good. And even Gary's so tactically aware about United, and he knows his team so well. So do listen out to that podcast if you haven't listened to it already. There we go. Quick shout out to our mini league winners at the moment as well. Let's give them the credit they deserve.
Really? 2 weeks?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about them.
Well, one of them is going to win £100 in a week or so.
Oh, what, our Patreon?
Yeah, and you need to know, you want to get in these Patreon mini leagues, sign up to Patreon before the end of October.
That manager of the month for 3 game weeks. It won't be me or you, will it? Let's be honest.
James is just bitter. We've got Matt Derbyshire's right up there in the top
Matt.
tier. Gilfie Pleasures. He's on 150 points, James. Not bad.
Nice.
And Brad Lewindon is not far behind on 149. So they're both up there, thereabouts. The second tier Patreon mini league is up to Jeff Priestman is well up there, and he's at 175 points,
Boom.
which is storming. He's got quite a lead on Andrew King, who's at 153
These leads
points.
don't matter at the moment. See, you just contradicting
Well, they do
everything.
if you're winning cash.
No, that's true.
And they are.
Yeah, but someone who's like 12th in this league could get 120 next week and they'll win it. So it doesn't
Good.
matter.
That's the whole point of these. And don't tag at official FPL and tell them. Little grasses. So there we go. And in our open league top at the moment, Eric Soley, 193 points. That's 100 points more than I've got at the moment. But that's saying something. Not bad going.
It's 100 points more than me as well. By the way. Let's review some games.
Everton 5, West Bromwich Albion 2.
You have to understand this weekend was a freak. It's the first thing. It was just, for me, what happened this week in terms of the amount of goals, the way the games were played, you could argue a little bit to do with fitness, particularly in the cases where some teams are at different fitness levels to others.
Yep.
But that's not going to become a regular occurrence.
There was also more red cards than you get in a standard weekend as well. A number of games were affected. Gibbs got sent off. Christensen got sent off. We had the red card yesterday for Egan and so on and so on. So quite a number of games had that impact on them as well.
I don't actually think those three, from an FPL perspective, obviously the Kieran Gibbs one did, but the two latter ones, I don't think they overly affected.
I mean, Liverpool are probably going to win anyway. And
I mean, Sheffield United fans will say, yeah, of course it affected the
I mean,
result,
Egan,
but we would never expect mass returns in a Sheffield United game anyway from an FPL perspective.
No, but it did give Villa the opportunity to take it. This Everton 5, West Brom 2. I mean, I watched the first half. I didn't watch the second half, James, and I was impressed with West Brom. I thought Everton were controlled and played within themselves without really trying to break free, because they probably knew that they had the better players on the pitch, and if they were patient, then they would. But the thing to stand out for me was I like Alan. I looked at him and I just thought, actually, you know what? You're a player. He's really, really good. Not from an FPL point of view, but if he lets other people be good FPL assets, I really like Alan. I thought he was very good. And on the flip side, Grady was threatening for West Brom, and as was Pereira. Luca Dean was a threat as well. He was bombing forward. I don't know whether he'll get that same space to bomb forward in other matches as he did in that game. But tripling up on Everton?
I got none of them.
Me neither.
I won't be getting any of them this week.
Me neither.
And to be honest, I would have taken the base on. I was obviously so impressed with the way they played against us in game week 1 that if I was desperate to do it, I would have hammered into them before West Brom. Now, yeah, there's still a sustained decent run. I think Palace now just looks awkward. Pound for pound, and yes, Palace fans have been critical of your side. Pound for pound, they're probably the best side defensively, considering they haven't spent a penny defensively, and they never do.
Yeah.
Brighton, as we've said, I think that's a tricky, challenging fixture, but it's always one where you can score goals against Brighton, in fairness, so that's okay. And in game week 5's the Merseyside Derby, so it doesn't look that good of a run, and I feel like I'd be chasing a little bit. That said, Calvert-Lewin, great value. James Rodriguez, great value. Richarlison, you can make a strong case for. I feel like he was the one who really could have got an even bigger return at the weekend. And Luca Dean to come out of that game with a 1-point return is a bit of a disgrace, actually. So all four of them, very viable assets. I wouldn't put anybody off. To go back to your point on Alan, interestingly, I felt the goal was a little bit his fault.
Yeah.
The first goal. And all I mean by that is, I think Everton got sucked into something very early in the game, which didn't happen against Tottenham. And it was, and I'm not saying mentality-wise that they dismissed West Brom as an easier game, which mentally you will do. Just psychologically you will. I think they just played a few yards higher. And that's understandable and it's okay. But basically, when Pereira nipped the ball into Diangana, they were in trouble. Spurs could never isolate that situation against Everton in game week 1 because Everton never allowed it to happen because Allen was always that much deeper, for example. Doucouré and Gomez had their mind switched on to think defensively this is going to be a problem. Now, Pereira's tucking the ball round to Diangana and it's 80 yards from goal. No Everton player gets near the ball and it ends up in the net. So it's just something to watch out for that actually, in some of the, let's say, less high-profile games, Everton might put a few yards higher up the pitch and it might actually cost them a little bit counter-attack. The other thing I loved about that goal was I screamed on this podcast last week about the distance between Pereira and Diangana, and them being way too far from each other. On the goal, they win it. They're 10 yards away from each other. Pereira gives the legs on the outside that allows Diangana the space. Robinson makes a good run further ahead as well. And that's where the goal comes from. So for West Brom to be a threat, that's what's got to happen. Pereira and Diangana got to be close like that. And I actually thought, until Everton equalised, I thought they were pretty poor, actually. And it's easy to look at it after, I got 5, it was brilliant. They had a great spell after they equalised. James scores a brilliant goal. They obviously go in front. Bilic loses his head. Kieran Gibbs loses his head. It falls apart for West Brom. Pereira scored a great free kick goal. So to get 10 points out of that for me was completely unexpected. Although I could have done with Everton not going mental and having a few bonus points to go with that as well, thanks. Then obviously they're done over in terms of balls in behind, balls at set pieces. They've got big problems, West Brom. The goals they conceded were quite avoidable, in the sense that 2 of them were from set pieces and one's a ball over the top. So in spite of the fact that we were a man short, those were avoidable situations. But it's difficult to judge them, actually, because the first half hour against Leicester, they were okay. And then I felt like Leicester sussed them out. And the first half hour in this game, they were okay as well. Like, they matched Everton quite early in the game, I thought. But Everton should be taken very, very seriously. If you want to buy their players, you absolutely can. I think West Brom would be avoidable, bar Pereira, Diangana, but I think there's better available assets at similar pricing at the moment, so you wouldn't go near them. If you feel the need to go to Everton, do. My cautious warning on it would be that Palace will be a frustrating game. I kind of think in my mind, I never want to buy a player again before they play Palace, because you just know that really you're not going to do them over, and we can speak about it a bit more when we speak about them, but we just write off that restart period for them. Everything we said in the summer was wrong. Was wrong.
Yeah. 100% agree with you on that. Leeds 4, Fulham 3. Bamford, he had a price rise, one of only a couple of players that did.
He's had another one.
And he rewarded the people that went over across to Bamford, and then he's returned with a goal and 2 assists. So credit to him and everybody that owns him. We're just trying to have a look at ownership. 17.1%. That's decent for Bamford now.
Leeds have had 10 shots on target in the 2 games. Scored 7 goals. Suggests that it's probably not sustainable. Their XG is 2.34, for example, against 7 goals scored. That said, there's certain things about them that are very impressive. The first 20 minutes of the second half, they looked like they were going to destroy Fulham once they got the game away. Key moments in there, like Click for Bamford's goals, absolutely brilliant. Great couple of goals for Helder Costa. All the midfield runners look like they're going to score. Bear in mind, Harrison is suspended for the Man City game in game week 4, but you might have started without him anyway. Hernandez was a miss, obviously pulled out. Rodrigo played in basically as one of the central players in the midfield 4 behind the front man, obviously protected by Calvin Phillips. And I thought he struggled. I mean, Bielsa said he wasn't going to play, basically, in the first instance. It was out of necessity. I think Leeds will still add in the market. That's another thing that's worth saying about them. 2 difficult games coming up, Sheffield United and Manchester City. I think the standout option would be Click. He's obviously on the pens. Andy Martin's highlighted that actually he didn't really get the attacking returns that what he should have last year. The year before is worth looking at, where he did get a very good volume of goals. But I'm very concerned on them defensively. And I think the majority of us went into the start of this season thinking Ayling or Dallas. But at the moment, I don't see anything in either of them that's going to get me an attacking return. And if they're conceding 3 goals against Fulham, that's a concern. I thought that I wasn't comfortable with Meslier watching him in the Liverpool game, and I feel much less confident now. He looks about 12, doesn't he? He looks like a boy.
Yeah.
And I think he's at fault here. You could even argue the penalty arguably should save it. But getting under the cross for the Mitrovic goal is bad. Reed's goal for me should save. Good goalkeeper saves that. So I think that's a concern. I don't see clean sheets in Leeds yet. They could well get one on Sunday because Sheffield United, it's difficult to judge them after obviously the Villa game yesterday. But it's 2 games without a goal. you never feel like they're going to get many goals anyway. So I might even by default end up playing Ayling this weekend. But right now, this system 4-1-4-1 is working too well for them offensively to change.
And they'll take it if they can concede 2 goals but score 3. That's all they need to try and make sure they cement.
We've been told
Premier League place.
We've been told that they won't change system, and it's to their credit. Look, I've watched them twice. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching them twice. I look forward to watching them again on Sunday. It's great. It's not to be critical of them. I think from the 3 teams that have come up, I can't see any of them being defensively. It always feels like, one of them 4.5 goalkeepers breaks out from the promoted side.
Doesn't look likely.
I don't see it.
Click's the one that really stands out. I earmarked him as a potential move that I could have made away from St. Maximin, as a lot of people are looking to find a place to go. St. Maximin was over 20% ownership. But I think I'm going to end up going down the road of Armstrong at Southampton. I think they've got to turn a corner and improve. Although Click could continue to haunt me in the next few weeks if I don't go for him. He's so cheap that you'll eventually find, if you really want him and he keeps returning every game or every other game, you'll find a way to get to him. We've got to give Fulham a little bit of credit here because they could have given up and they didn't. People that were on Mitrovic will be very happy.
I think they didn't give up because Leeds let them back in the game, if I'm honest, rather than anything particularly brilliant from Fulham. I thought Anguissa played quite well in midfield, but there's reports this morning I've read that Milan want him and he might well be on his way.
Wow.
So I think the thing is with both these clubs, and I think particularly Fulham, there's going to be more people coming in the door. Mitrovic is going to do absolutely fine. I would probably take the view at the moment I've just missed out on the brace on him. He ain't going to get too many of them during the season. I'll leave that for now, thanks. But for those who've got him, he's essentially played 1 game and scored 2 goals, right? He's a pivotal player for them.
I think the fixture run is horrible because after Villa...
No, I don't think it is actually.
For Fulham, Wolves, Sheffield United and Palace, 3 of the better defensive sides coming up.
With Mitrovic, it's all about being in the right place and physicality in the box and stuff anyway. So the fact that those teams you mentioned, Wolves, Sheffield United, Palace, obviously sit off a little bit deeper, that doesn't matter for him because he's never going to run in behind anybody anyway. So from that perspective, it doesn't matter. And Villa actually as well, you could almost add into that list at the moment because they're the same. They defend better now and a little bit
They are
deeper.
defending quite well,
They don't get done on the counter-attack anymore.
No.
So actually, in an odd way, I know what you're saying there. The thing is, with Mitrovic, you're never expecting more than a goal, let's be honest.
No.
He's not someone you're ever going to put the armband on or anything. If you've got him, keep him, but I wouldn't buy him.
No.
And at Fulham, I wouldn't look anywhere else. I thought Tete at right back did okay, but he got mugged off bad on one of the goals as well. They need more Fulham. It was interesting that Rodak.
We can talk about Alan getting mugged off on his goal and Tete getting mugged off. But the truth is, Kevin De Bruyne got mugged off yesterday, so it happens to the best of them. You know. To be
fair, it's not that Alan was mugged off. It was the positioning of the team, and then suddenly you're behind, where you couldn't get behind them before. That was the point.
Yeah.
Everton play Palace at the weekend.
Yeah.
Palace are going to sit off. Everton are going to push on.
Forward.
So Palace might be able to work the same.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about Palace now. Man United 1, Palace 3. I mean, I really enjoyed this game because it felt like, if you listen to Andros Townsend's post-match comments and stuff, we thought we might catch them cold, and if we were really up for it, we could do it. And it really played out that way. What I like about Palace is 2 things. When I watch them defensively, they have to be up there as one of the most organised teams in the league. Like, you can just watch the movement of the players from side to side tracking the ball. Everybody knows where they want to be defensively, and they're just really, really organised. And the attacking players in Ayew and Zaha and even Eze now, they play without fear. When I watch my own team, what I don't like is when we get into attacking positions, there's suddenly that lack of confidence and a little bit of fear of, oh shit, we're in the box now, we need to really score because we don't get that many chances. They play with quite a bit of freedom, and Zaha is looking good at the moment. He really is. And I felt like they were just a constant threat. It wasn't a case of they went 2-1 up and then were just going to sit off or what have you. They were a constant threat and ended up winning comfortably.
What happened in the first half? Because we were signing Gareth Bale, so I didn't take much notice.
as bad as that?
No, I had it on, but the patrons would have probably already heard this story. But I was not interested in what was going on at Old Trafford. I was like, my boy's back. things you didn't think you'd hear come out of my mouth after game week 2. I wish I could find a way to get Wilfried Zaha in my FPL team.
Yeah.
Is something you didn't think you'd hear. It's important here, I think, to compliment Palace rather than, and we spoke about United at length a lot on yesterday's podcast. So I don't want to cover them too much because I think they'll do better at the weekend at Brighton, and I think they'll win. I'd rather spend time talking about Palace. Basically, they've changed to just a complete out-and-out 4-4-2, very old school. You can call that critical of Hodgson, but it works very well. I thought he was under mass pressure. Those who've listened to me know I said I think they'll go this year.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to, like, Burnley played 4-4-2. We don't really criticise Sean Dyche as being old school. I think if you've got 2 good strikers...
You ever seen a Burnley team get like 1 point in 9 or something? No,
sometimes.
No, but you know they'll recover.
A couple of years ago. Yeah,
you know they'll recover.
I'm not scared about Burnley going down. They're never going to go down.
The biggest thing on this change for Palace, and you have to give us huge credit because they've got defensive injuries everywhere.
Yep.
The back 4 play very narrow. So you're going to have to go round Palace. The ball comes into the box. They've got giants like Sacco who are very comfortable in that area, right? They'll deal with that problem. The midfield 4 put up a narrow block as well. You're going to have to go in behind. They eliminate the space for people like Fernandes where he wants to pick up pockets. That's why partly United's best footballer, in my opinion, went and played very deep once they started throwing men on the pitch, United, because there was no space for him in between the pockets. So he might as well go deeper where he can see the picture of the game and try and work stuff from there. What that allows is the 2 wide players, it's important to have pace. So you've got Schlupp and Townsend. Now, we've got Eze to add to that as well, who's obviously technically a far better player than Schlupp. But actually, Schlupp's directness really suits Palace in a roundabouts way. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's Townsend actually is the one that eventually gets dropped from that side. Zaha being central and with a partner allows him to do what he wants. He's the best player in that football team. And all that systematic targeting of him in terms of, right, Zaha's got it on the touchline, let's double up on him, where everybody knew how to play against him every week. This fella has to play central. And him being central now makes him understand what's going to make him a valuable and marketable player that may eventually get him to move away from the club that he wants. Is being central. Between the widths of the posts is what's going to do your damage, because Wilfried Zaha running at someone centrally versus having to run at 2 people out wide, I know which one's going to make me scared. He's got all the ability. Now he's got players with pace around him as well. And this reminds me of how it felt a couple of years ago where we spoke about this. Palace away from home, like 3 goals at the Etihad, 3 goals at Anfield. Why is this? It's because they played with pace on the counter-attack. They've gone back to that. They've gone back to what's been successful for them, particularly as an away team. And they defend resolutely as well. So you've got a perfect mix between saying now, actually, there's no way they'd get relegated. They'll be better than that. I think they'll have dips, and I don't think they're good enough to go and finish top half longer term. But this system change is so good for them, and particularly Zaha. So
if you're looking at Zaha now, I mean, they're not playing anyone from the top 6 until game week 12, and that's Tottenham. And it's actually game week 14 where they play Liverpool. But in amongst that, they've got Chelsea in game week 4. Apart from that, Everton, Brighton, Fulham, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley, Newcastle, West Brom. And in between Tottenham and Liverpool is West Ham. So if you're going to do it, I feel like now is the time where over the Christmas period, you've got Liverpool, Villa, Leicester, Sheffield United, Arsenal, City. That's a lot more congested over Christmas and New Year. I think Zaha, the time is now to dive in if you are going to go and get him.
If he's gettable, I actually prefer him as an asset at this moment over, say, James. I genuinely, I think that's where I'd go. Mate, possibly helps that he's a little bit cheaper as well. I think it's just the idea of the OOP. It doesn't work for me this week to go and make that move. But him playing OOP, and I think he's going to stay there, is important as well. Which suddenly, remember 2 years ago when at the start of the season, him and Arnautovic got repriced as forwards, and a lot of us went with both because it was like, well, yeah. I mean, if he was a midfielder at that price, I'd definitely have him. Okay, I'll still go with it. So we've gone back to that. What we thought was so great about Wilfried Zaha 2 years ago, he's now back in that position. And considering we've got the likes of, I mean, you cannot make the case of whether Aubameyang, Salah and all these guys are forwards or not. But Zaha really is central now. And I think that it's working well for them. I don't see actually why it should change.
United will improve, like you mentioned. I think something that Gary pointed out on the podcast yesterday was how
and he
poor...
might be on pens now as well, although Milivojevic didn't play, but I think he's not part of their first 11 now.
No, he's not. I don't think Luka Milivojevic is. I saw somebody tagging our Crystal Palace correspondent McTavius asking that exact same question earlier today. United, Gary pointed out how poor they are against the bottom 14 rather than the top 6 or 5 other teams that they have to play. So many more as a percentage of their points come from those games. Post-lockdown, the opposite of Palace, United were particularly good at breaking teams down, and then once they did get 1 or 2 goals and teams had to come out a little bit, they were quite clinical. But here they weren't. Give them a little bit of leeway, rustiness, first game back, all that kind of stuff. But there was nothing there that made me think, I need to get your players now. Now, you've already dived in on Martial and Fernandes. I don't think that's a bad thing. They're ready to go. They will get better. They will return FPL points. They're great assets. But I'm not now rushing straight to United. I want another week to have a look.
They looked a tired team.
I mean, they played a lot of football.
Yes. Something was missing for them. But again, I think the main thing is actually credit to Palace in terms of frustrating.
Yeah.
When United have been at their best, and when they're generally at their best, is when they move the ball quickly. I'm not talking about long direct balls over the top, just between lines, back to front, very quickly, particularly on the counter-attack. Palace just don't allow you that with those 2 banks of 4. Now, try and translate that into Brighton at the weekend. Now, I think Brighton are a better team than Palace, but I think United have a better chance of beating Brighton than Palace because I know Brighton...
Style of football,
they'll play open, they get done in transition when they lose at Brighton because they take risks. And if United win it high, they'll kill them. So I think that should be a really good game on Saturday. Brighton are very capable of beating Manchester United, by the way, in a very different way to how Crystal Palace did. But I think for those who, like me, have dived in on Fernandes, Martial, it's not the week to come off.
Definitely not.
After this game week, I'm probably going to make a decision where one gets removed. And it might be, based on what I see from that, then there's a harder run where another one gets removed. But it was certainly targeting these 2 fixtures, particularly, to get these 2 guys in. Where I've read it wrong, in my opinion, is obviously on Palace. And underestimating their quality defensively. Yeah. So they stay for me this weekend.
Arsenal 2, West Ham 1. We talked about this game because we already recorded Tot and Ham for the Patreons, where we give a little bit more of an in-depth rundown on this game. But ultimately, I tweeted after the game that I was very proud of the performance of the team, because what I look for in my team, West Ham, is always effort first. Like, if you leave everything on the pitch and you've tried your hardest, and I can see that, then I'm not going to criticise you. I just thought tactically, the first 2 or 3 minutes really scared me, just because of the amount of times where we had 5 or 6 players in the Arsenal half when they had the ball. So we were trying to push really high up, Souček and Rice being inside the centre circle but in the Arsenal half. Masuaku really bombing forward on the left and giving Fornals some help. And I think it was a very clear strategy to try and nick the ball off Arsenal up top and then let the back 5 that we had sit very deep and trust that Arsenal won't break us down. And it worked well for 20 minutes until they did get in behind. Lacazette scored a good goal. And then we reverted to type and sat in for the remainder of that first half. I didn't see where a goal was coming from, James, to be honest with you. But a good breakaway. Frederick's breaking down the right. Put us across in. Antonio, anytime, any place. I think he has one of the highest XG so far this season, does Antonio. Per game.
I think you're right.
He's doing particularly well. I mean, he hit the bar, didn't he? And he's drawn a few saves as well.
He's about 10th on the list, actually.
Yeah, so it's not bad for a 6.5 million striker. And Arsenal, on the other hand, weren't at their best. In the end, we just got tired, run out of legs. But there was a strong period of 25 minutes in the second half where it's confusing. I'm not used to watching my team be on top and create chances and dominate a game like that. And we were. And it was enjoyable to watch that ultimately ended in defeat, which tells us the story of being a West Ham fan, mate, basically.
Summary on West Ham. I think there's only 2 players you should be considering, Souček and Antonio.
Yeah.
I don't regret selling Antonio because I think in that bulk run of fixtures that you have, there are games where he's going to score in, but I don't think there's games he's going to go off mad either.
I'm ready to sell him, if that helps your cause.
But I also think it's very, very reasonable to keep him. I really, really do. He's a powerhouse. He's proven in the past that he's capable of scoring these type of games, so it's fine. Souček, I don't know.
Just on Antonio as well, and take my word for it or not, because last year I called him out for being tired and he went and scored 4 goals. But he does look fit right now.
Man, child, mute this.
He does look fit right now. In the game, there wasn't like
he's going to go off fucking injured now, isn't he?
He probably will, because he's injury prone. But I've seen him where he's huffing and puffing, and you can see him touching parts of his legs, feeling like, oh, my hamstring this,
Excuse me?
that. Yeah, legs, not third legs.
What's this? I meant to pull you up on this. He was doing this. I didn't notice it at the weekend, but he did this. I can feel Manchild beaming at me out the corner of my eye. In game week 1, he was doing this a lot against. Who did you get? Newcastle. How did you lose to them? He kept putting his shorts up really high and tight, like on one leg.
Listen. If
he was waving his leg around, I'm coming out later, girls.
If I had thighs like him,
you'd have him out.
I'd fucking have him out. Honestly, I'd have them out.
Machines, mate.
His thighs are tree trunks. I'd have them out.
One player who doesn't have them is Souček.
Yeah.
Who I was concerned when I saw the lineup. Thinking, oh well, he's not going to be able to break out.
Two holding midfielders in Rice and Souček.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to break out from midfield. But every time the ball went wide, he was still there. He was, of course, still a threat at set pieces.
He's a good player.
He's a perfect example where he's going to go down to 4.9 this week from 5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's because his ownership's reasonable, should we say? Differential for most. He's not owned by 0.2% or whatever. Some people frustrated getting off. He's a perfect case of just stop for me and look at it. We spoke about this game week 1 and went, do you know what? He's probably going to lose value at the start, isn't he? But I want him sitting there because there's a period I'm definitely going to want him in for. Do we care that he's losing 0.1 in value? No. I couldn't care less.
I've no intention of selling him.
People are going to make that move. He's the sort of one we highlighted early in the season. We went, do you know what? He might lose a bit of value. He'll get it back up. So I really don't care because he's going to get goals. It's absolute certainty. So that if he drops to 4.9 and you haven't got him, my advice would be buy him.
Yeah.
Because I think he'll go back up in value. And I wouldn't be put off by the fixtures. I really think at the moment he's worth paying that extra for a really good 5th midfielder. I can understand the frustrations if he was your 4th midfielder and you were playing him regularly and you're probably looking at them fixtures now going, it's tough. But I don't think for Souček, and the same for Antonio, I don't think the fixtures matter. The only thing with Antonio is I don't think he has the capability, because West Ham don't have the capability to go big in these fixtures where he can get me 2 goals or something like that. So what I would say is I hope he stays fit for you, mate, because I'm worried for you if he doesn't. But that was much better at the weekend.
I don't know. I think Haller, obviously, we'll see. We've got another cup game as well. Haller, I think, is getting back into some sort of shape and form. So I'm not overly worried. Talking of strikers, though, are we all sleeping on Lacazette? He's the same price as Danny Ings, and he's the same price as Raul Jimenez, but he doesn't get mentioned in any conversations at all. The way that Arsenal are setting up now with Aubameyang clearly on the left and Pepe or Willian clearly on the right, that spot is Lacazette's. He's a better striker than Eddie Nketiah, and I know Nketiah's young, so he is the spearhead of that attack. 8.5 million. Arsenal will score goals because they've got creativity and they've got people that will create opportunities. I'm thinking, you know what, Lacazette's an interesting one that could be a bit of a differential. 5.3% ownership at the moment.
Better choice than Danny Ings?
Look, Southampton have underwhelmed in the first 2 weeks. There's not as much in it as there would have been at the start of the season if you'd asked me.
Better choice than Jimenez?
Maybe.
Stuff it.
No, if you'd asked me, look, I'm hesitant. If you'd asked me at the start of the season, okay, who scored more goals out of all 3 of them? It's Jimenez and Lacazette.
Lacazette, right? No, they've all got 2, haven't they?
Ings. Oh yeah, you got 2 in one game.
So they've all won 2.
Yeah.
Right, that's brilliant. So they're all returning 1 point per game. I know which 2 is going to be more consistent. The thing is with Lacazette as well.
Lacazette's minutes have always been inconsistent.
With respect, he's just played Fulham and West Ham.
Yeah.
Right? They're the sort of games you would expect him to score in if he's going to play up front for the middle for Arsenal. No. I think in the games coming up, not so much Sheffield United, but in other games coming up, you're going to see him play quite a defensive role for the team. You know, I can see, for example, if Thiago starts for Liverpool on Monday night, I can see Lacazette being tasked with going to get round him every time he gets on the ball. And then Arsenal used the 2 wide players to spring, which I think means, by the way, that Pepe might start. Just a tactical thing to maybe be aware of. So does that player who's going to go and be defensive and his main job in the team is to go and get round the ball playing midfield player of the opposition, does that appeal? You ain't going to go and buy him now before they play Liverpool, are you?
Not before they play Liverpool, no. But when they break forward, just look at he played 2,500 minutes, let's say a couple of years ago. 13 goals, 12 assists. Last year, 1,800 minutes, 10 goals, 7 assists. It's good returns. He just hasn't had the minutes consistently. I feel like Arteta trusts him to be the main striker now and will play him consistently.
I think Lacazette's earned that trust because he's shown variation in his play. Like, he can be a forward that goes in beyond. He's a good finisher, in my opinion. I think when he plays on instinct, he's much better. I actually like him as a player. I think
he's a good striker.
I think he's a very good player. I think he's a very good foil on the inside of Aubameyang. I think he really, really suffered for whatever reason last season with a huge loss of confidence. Seems happy with his football again, which I think helps from...
Doesn't look like he's on his way out the door.
Winning a trophy and being a part of that and stuff like that.
Doesn't look like he's on his way out the door, which has also been a rumour that's circulated
Could
quite a bit.
Alex Lacazette be a good FPL asset? Ask me again in game week 8.
Okay, I'm just putting it out there. I think his price is decent, 8.5 million.
Aubameyang has been sold by myself, and I imagine that's probably a move that a lot of other people made at probably around about midnight last night, like myself as well. Knowing, okay, I've seen enough from KDB. His price is going up tonight. Let's make that move. So, look, Aubameyang, the difficulty here with him is, I think everybody had this plan move because it's well documented. Arsenal's next 5: Liverpool, Sheffield United, Man City, Leicester, Man United. Look, Aubameyang could get 5 goals in those 5 games. We know what he's capable of, right? But the problem coming back on the other side for him is his consistency is amazing. Does he ever feel like a player you want to put the armband on? And now this is an interesting one because I've just captained him twice. Yep. And to be honest, if you'd said to me, he's going to get me 7 points and 5 points respectively, I'd probably go, it's not what I hoped for, but I've got returns from my captain twice in a row. Crack on. That's okay. But there aren't many games where you feel like he's going to go off mad. And it's going to be a really interesting one to follow on the other side by the time we get to, game week 8, you could make a strong case that Aubameyang's possibly the best captain choice looking ahead when they play at home to Villa. It's an awkward week because I think that's when City play Liverpool as well. So there might well be a dive back for Aubameyang come then at a much cheaper price, I think, than 12 million, by the way, as well. And it might prove that he's the best option. But I don't know, do you have any, just thinking ahead to that now, if Arsenal were playing Villa this weekend, would you have the captaincy, the confidence to captain him?
Not as much as some of the other assets that are available.
I don't think so either.
Southampton
and his ownership obviously started quite high, so it will take his ownership now is 38.7%. I think his ownership's going to take a big dive in the next couple of weeks. It does mean for the plenty of Shrewdies out there, you'll be picking him back up, I think, around about 11.7, and it'll be interesting.
Southampton 2, Spurs 5, a tale of two halves.
No, a tale of how not to fucking defend. I won't do this in detail because we've done it on the Patreon pod, and I could comfortably spend half hour on the game. So just sum it up best I can from an FPL perspective. On Southampton first, the goalkeeper's the first issue. So I've heard a lot of people say you can't blame McCarthy for any of them goals at the weekend. He should come out and get the ball on the first goal when Son's forced into a wider position. The first pass is a good pass from Kane, but actually puts Son a bit wider than he would like. McCarthy should come out and either claim the ball early, cut it off at the pass, or he should be pressuring Son. The Son's fourth goal, Son ends up tapping it in from 6 yards and McCarthy stood on his fucking line, basically. A good goalkeeper's coming out and smothering. If you're going to play a high line, your goalkeeper needs to play the sweeper-keeper role. This geezer don't come out of his box. He wouldn't know. He'd get a nosebleed. He'd be like Ruben Neves entering the penalty box. What's that? So that's the biggest problem that Southampton have for me with the whole high line is the goalkeeper's positioning. That said, players on pitch should realise there's a problem, and there's a certain player here who was just doing them every single time. Essentially, he basically had 6 1-on-1s in the game, Son. He had one in the first half where he was fractionally offside, and he had one after he scored the fourth where it was like, hit it, mate, and he was looking to square it, and I was pissed off. He should have shot. And they just did not sense the danger and had no awareness that Tottenham were using this as the one single tactic to tear them apart every single time. That said, fixtures that Saints have coming up interest me because we've seen Palace, and I spoke last week when they played Palace about the mistake they made against Palace was making the pitch too small.
Yep.
Because against Palace, what you want to do is draw them out. Sometimes it will look like you're playing at a slow tempo, but you've got to draw them out to try and find the spaces to then get at the back four. Otherwise, you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, which is slinging the ball into the box. Now, when Saints have got forwards like Ings and Adams, there's no point doing that anyway. So that's why I think they made a big mistake. They made bigger mistakes in the Palace game, actually, than this one. This one was just the same mistake over and over again.
Yep.
But in the games coming up, Burnley and West Brom, in my opinion, this isn't going to be a problem. And that's important to say because there's going to be a lot of FPL managers right now sitting there with McCarthy, who I've just slated, Walker-Peters, those two particularly, are thinking, oh my God, conceded 5 to a fucking Mourinho team. I'll have to get rid straight away. What I'm saying is don't. Burnley away this weekend's okay. They won't get behind in the same way. West Brom similarly as well. It would only be a danger when Pereira or Diangana come off one touchline and the other one comes off the other at the same time. Then you get that crossover and that running behind. Otherwise, I think they'll be okay. From the forward perspective, Redmond is a big miss, but Buffal in the first half was very lively. He's one to keep an eye on. Armstrong back fit, 5.4. We all thought it was a great option 3 weeks ago, so why shouldn't we think he's a great option now with two nice fixtures coming up? Danny Ings is Danny Ings. I don't need to say anymore. Great finisher. I mean, Hugo should save it, but he took the first goal so well, and he's a constant menace. I was screaming at the TV because it was exactly the same as the goal we scored against us on New Year's Day. Exact same run. See it. Sanchez has to see it and make sure he doesn't get there. Anyway, I haven't got long enough. And Che Adams has essentially the best XG for a player with less than 10 FPL points so far. Che Adams' XG so far this season is 1.42. The XA is 0.31. His expected FPL points, according to Fantasy Football Hub, is 12.3. He has 3. Hold him. He's a decent option, honestly. And I know the frustration is to come off. I get that, particularly if you can afford to go to, say, Calvert-Lewin, for example, at the moment. I can see you wanting to make that move. The smarter thing here with Burnley side that was, I mean, they didn't look great with Tarkowski and me missing, right, on Sunday night. If they're still missing, you got that to come, and then West Brom genuinely hold. I think those who hold Che Adams will get rewarded in these next 2 game weeks. I really do.
Probably. Allegedly.
Listen, I said
allegedly.
I think. I mean, I realise that
those who hold will get rewarded.
Some people. I think that those people will get rewarded. Fuck, man. Everybody knows I'm a banter account, right? And I'm just here for shits and giggles, and I'm a bad FPL player. No one really takes us seriously, do they? No, unfortunately, I'm well aware that some people do take this way too literally. But yes, I do think that Che Adams owners will be rewarded if they hold on. However, I suspect that many will sell. On Tottenham, flip what I've just said about Saints and the upcoming fixtures and now reverse that to Tottenham. I know that what happened there with Kane putting Son through time and time again is probably something you're not going to see in another Tottenham football match ever.
Even the official account just resorted to Control-C, Control-V for every time there was a goal.
At the time of recording, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Tottenham are due to play at Leyton Orient in 5 hours. That game has not been called off yet, but we think that it will be. If Leyton Orient have to put their under-15s team on the pitch, Tottenham won't open them up the way we opened up Southampton. I mean, it's just so bad to keep getting done by the same mistake over and over again. That said, the two of them were obviously absolutely brilliant. Kane's creativity, I've spoken about this a number of times. I know what he's capable of. That's why I want him dropping into holes and people running beyond. It's exactly what I want. Hopefully, he might have Bale doing it from the other flank as well soon, and then it will look really powerful. Son is a magnificent finisher. When he gets in front of goal, you never feel like he's going to miss. He won't get that space in behind against Newcastle unless we score early, in my opinion. He definitely won't get that space up at Old Trafford, and he definitely won't get that space against you in game week 5 either. So the upcoming fixtures, although to the eye you think, oh, that's Newcastle and West Ham in the next 3. Actually, for him, is not as easy as what's just gone. I spoke on my stream Friday about how I thought Son could do Cole Walker-Peters over. I just didn't think he could do them all over. Now with Sonny, he's obviously capable of whipping one in the top corner from 25 yards, right? So he has different elements to his game where he can get his returns from. I am in no way saying that Heung-min Son is a bad FPL pick. If you want to get him, crack on, be my guest. Just understand that what you see in these next few games is likely to be very, very different. And of course, if they weren't aware of it, they're aware of it now. What do you think? Even if Newcastle, you go, shit, they can get done over defensively. Do you think Bruce is going to be telling them all week? Don't let that fucking happen. It's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I just think
so you're going to have to attack
Where
differently.
if you score early, though, it completely changes these games
I
because
agree.
they have to come out.
I agree.
And that will create the space. So Spurs scoring early.
Let me ask you, do you think Tottenham will score early?
Well, you had the ball in the back of the net twice inside the first 10, 15 minutes on,
so did they.
on the weekend. So
it's a car crash of a game.
We still got 5 games to rattle through. So Newcastle 0, Brighton 3. Good performance from Brighton in so many ways. Everybody's having a little look at Tarek Lamptey. He hasn't gone up in price yet. His ownership is still low. I think mainly because he's flagged with a knock at the moment, but he probably should be all right.
He was so good. Like, if you don't have a Brighton defensive asset, go and buy Lamptey. For those who are like me, who've got Matt Ryan, don't bother. But he's a little gem. You'll just enjoy owning him. I think sometimes you have to have them players.
Yeah,
I'll talk about De Bruyne about that like that in a minute. But yeah, he's a bundle of joy. He's, so quick. He can tackle, he can dribble, he can pass. He's got it all.
Thank you to Newcastle for reminding me why, even though I was thinking about Lewis and even Ryan Fraser maybe, and also Callum Wilson, that I'm glad I didn't buy any of them. And I'm still, I don't know, just unconvinced now.
Sire FPL Football, they tweeted it Sunday night after the game as well. It was obviously really disappointing for them after a very good game week 1.
Yeah, they were really on a high, man. The
and
transfers
I think,
coming in.
To be honest, more than anyone, you look at them and go, on the way they played against you, even think about it like this. You were good against Arsenal, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were shit against Newcastle.
We were bad.
Newcastle were good against you. They were shit against Brighton. I don't bet against Brighton being shit against Man United after they were shit against Palace.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's so early in the season.
Yeah.
I think with Newcastle, the difference here to against you was Brighton's system.
Okay.
It's the big thing to read into the difference. Now, you've obviously now gone to that system with a back 5, basically. But you didn't play that against Newcastle in game week 1. And what that back 3 allows, particularly Brighton, against sides, let me say, of bottom half standard, which at the moment we have to include Brighton and Newcastle as part of that, it gives them control. They can play out comfortably. And then you've got a wing back like Lamptey, who, he made St. Maximin look like a fucking tortoise, right? And the guy's lightning. So, and then you get out and you get players in the middle of, like Bissouma. I fucking know that red card. I need to come back to that. Bissouma was great. Alzati was great. Trossard was picking up pockets. Like with yourselves the week before for West Ham. Souček's a threat in terms of getting into the box. I'm not bothered if Souček's got the ball 25 yards from goal at his feet. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want Trossard in that area, though, causing damage, and 2 front players who obviously wanted to run in behind and stretch them at every opportunity. It's interesting that Maupay is basically not getting mentioned by anybody at the moment. He'll be a very good asset. If you've got him, he's another one to hold on to. I think he's going to do a lot better this year, Neil Maupay. So that's why I think it went wrong from Newcastle, and probably at the same time summed up why it went very well for Brighton. On St. Maximin, the word is that he might be back for the game at Tottenham on Sunday. However, I would be delighted to see him playing wide on the left in a 4-4-2 rather than where he played against
as a Tottenham fan as opposed to an FPL owner. As an FPL owner, you'd be...
Even up against Doherty and knowing how Doherty can't recover, I wouldn't be worried about it. We'll push him so far back up the pitch, it wouldn't matter.
Yep.
So I'm not concerned even if he is fit. I was concerned about him being in my FPL team. It's one of them you put down on hindsight and go, I think you put your hands up and go, this one was a mistake. He's another one, and I think Sai said this as well, our Newcastle correspondent. He was saying, at some point, again, he will provide value, and I think he's absolutely right, by the way. He's just not on the left in a 4-4-2. And therefore, I think he's one that for the majority of people and what they've seen are now going to move off. Even in the West Ham game, the feeling afterwards was, he's not going to get me anything, even in a good performance. So, now you see it he obviously went off injured. But, I think that's one to move on. Newcastle, not on my radar, I'm afraid. The defensive guys, if you've got Lewis and that, etc., there'll be a time to play them. This weekend's probably not it.
No, doesn't feel like it's the right time to jump on any of those guys. Let's talk about the the Chelsea game, late afternoon kickoff.
Sorry, we have to talk about Bissouma's red card.
Oh, go on.
I'd never seen anything like it. I was laughing hysterically. All I could see in the back of my head was Shawn Michaels' theme music. It was all I could hear. I'm Shawn.
WWE.
Oh my God. Literally, I could hear him stomping. Winding up just to give him a super kick. It's so unfortunate that he's got a 3-game ban off that. I completely see why he was sent off. I've just never seen anything like it.
I think
just the contact was so perfect. If he tried to kick him in the head, if he went, mate, stand there, I'm going to do that to you. 100 times he wouldn't catch him that clean if he looked and did it.
He's only going to miss one league game if Brighton go
win
through
in
the cup, though.
So hold him. If you've got him, hold him. You weren't going to start him anyway, so keep hold of him, I think. Yeah. He's a good asset. He's probably him and Oliver Burke at Sheffield United, if he's going to get minutes, look like the two probably stand out 4.5s now. Anyway, sorry, Chelsea, Liverpool.
Liverpool smashed them. What else is there to say? I feel like I've seen it now 2 games from Chelsea. I gave them a bit of a pass in the Brighton game because first game back and what have you. If we talk about transition, and there's a word that gets used a lot, they don't seem to have anything in the middle of the park that's linking up Mount, Havertz and Werner with the defence. Like Jorginho, Kovacic, Kante, there seems to be something missing in the middle.
He picks a system for Liverpool, which I understand that in fairness.
They're missing something in the middle, and they really need to sort that out.
What they're missing is getting probably Havertz back to central, Ziyech on the right and Pulisic on the left, and Werner back through the middle, and then it looks like a threat, doesn't it? I mean, because Werner's ended up playing wide left here, basically. Yeah. Werner played 4 different positions during the game and was ineffective in all of them, which was by no fault of his own, by the way.
Yeah.
So
you can't fault the guy for effort.
Chelsea,
and he does look like, give him a chance and he will score.
I think it's very important to say with Chelsea, right? The goalkeeper, I've got nothing to say on it anymore, because do you know what? There was even a point I was watching the first half, and you're thinking, the fuck did they actually ever see him? And you think, do you know what? His distribution is good though, isn't it? And even that's cost him now. And I'm like, do you know what? I genuinely don't want to kick him anymore.
Yeah, it's got to the point where it's embarrassing.
They've got a goalkeeper, Ben Chilwell, Thiago Silva, Pulisic, Ziyech, all to come back into this team, right?
Yep.
That's half the team.
Yep.
To come and change it, right? That team that they've got there that played Liverpool on Sunday is not good enough to challenge for a league title. Okay, and I think we've all seen that. It doesn't mean once they add these units that they won't be. I still think, by the way, they're just going to be way too weak defensively to challenge for the league title. But I don't think you should overread into what you've seen. That said, there's enough discredit. Well, give me a good word, please, Suj.
For what?
I'm not encouraged. The opposite of I'm not encouraged. No, the opposite of I am encouraged.
Concerned.
I'm concerned enough to not want to be buying any of their players. And I think if you buy Chelsea players this week, you're not buying them because it's Chelsea. You're buying them because they're playing West Brom. I also, at the same time, don't think that you should sell. Yep. A lot of people ask me about Havertz. Now, what I've seen of Havertz in the 2 games, I mean, literally zero interest to me. I know, Suj knows, most of you will know, there is a much, much better footballer in there. And in time, I'm sure we will see it. But I wouldn't be buying him now. If I owned him, though, I'd still fucking keep him for West Brom at the weekend. So, for me, if you want to go and target Werner because you think the ceiling is there and you're going to go and stick the armband on him at the weekend, do you know what? Go and do it. It's fine. Otherwise, I think at the moment they're avoidable. But I think if you have the assets and you're thinking, my opinion would be, if you're thinking of selling someone like Havertz or Werner before they play West Bromwich Albion, you're either chasing points or you're fearful because of losing the value. The upside is hold on to these guys. They perform well. You will get your points and you will get your value back. That's my opinion, because people will then look and say, it's Crystal Palace afterwards. And they'll forget that Crystal Palace now looks a more difficult fixture. You missed it. Anyway.
Oh, the little mouse.
We got a mouse.
There's a mouse in the office. He stuck his head through what? The door?
No, he was sitting in the middle of the floor, blood.
Oh, where'd he go?
Where'd you think he went? Behind a box. They love them things.
There's a mouse in the studio.
Anyway, I won't be buying Chelsea players. You can if you want. Don't read too much into the game on Sunday. But I think the main message is actually hold on to them. Even though there's nothing, you know me, I judge on the eye test, basically, right? Even though I've seen nothing from Havertz, I don't think I'd sell before that fixture. I'd give him one more.
Yeah,
why did you buy him in the
that.
first place?
Exactly. We haven't seen Chelsea firing on all cylinders. Give him a chance. I think the West Brom fixture looks too tasty not to. I'm going to disagree on not buying any Chelsea players, but it depends on what your strategy is. For me, Reece James.
If you're buying, you buy Reece James.
Reece James is a buy and hold at 5.1. I'm moving away from Doherty or Tierney this weekend, one or the other. So
Reece James or Werner's the two you would buy.
Yeah,
I think
they're okay.
Yeah.
Liverpool, on the other hand.
Yeah, good. I think mainly good here from what's been the concern is, are they going to be motivated? Because make no mistake, I think they would have won this game anyway without the red card, which was definitely a red card, by the way. I think it was coming. I think they had complete control of the game. I think Thiago would have enabled that even more in the second half.
He was very good.
He was, but don't get over the top about it. He was playing against 10 men. And the one real mistake that Chelsea made in the game wasn't what the goalkeeper did with the ball. It was the way they set up after the red card. Because going to the three in midfield and just leaving the fullback on their own, especially when one of them's called Marcus fucking Alonso, is absolutely suicidal against Liverpool. Genuinely. So you're now allowing double ups against Alonso against Liverpool, and that's where the first goal came from. Reece James could have handled it a bit better. Did handle it a bit better, but then Mane's come in front of him and he's got the header for the goal, right?
Yep.
And it's not actually particularly to blame either of them. It's understand your weaknesses. And you could say, yeah, it's brave that he left Mount and Werner up front, but who was going to get the two of them the ball? Or which one of the midfield three was going to get up and support even if it got there anyway? So, no, I think, to be honest, what they should have done there was sacrifice one of the midfield players and get them a better ball carrier to give one of their fullbacks in an odd way protection. And they might have stayed in the game a bit longer. Like, he literally changed it within 10 minutes. He was like, oh, getting fucked here, aren't we? Let's go back to 4-4-1. So Chelsea fans shouldn't feel too bad about it. We've got good players to add to the team. For Liverpool, mentality-wise, strong. I loved that in the second half they went out with the we're going to kill you.
Yep.
That's how it felt. I loved that mentality about them. Salah looked sharp again. Mane was terrific. He's such a good player. Firmino's link work was good. The fullbacks, Robertson has always got very high.
Was
Trent's
a
always a threat.
Is Robertson a fullback?
You mean left winger? Yeah, we know.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I mean, just the fact that he's on so many set pieces now
let's
as
just get around this now, right? Liverpool's system is 2-5-3. let's be real about it. Yeah. 2-5-3 is Liverpool's system.
Yeah, phenomenal. Evening kickoff: Leicester 4, Burnley 2. I mean, Burnley. Defensively weak at the moment, but obviously it's their first game back. They've got injuries. I don't know if we can read too much into it. Chris Wood on the score sheet, great. I had quite a few people mentioning Jimmy Dunn as a great budget enabler, but I don't think he's
4.0 and he's scored. It's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, he's not part of the team long term if they get their players fit. If Tarkowski gets sold?
If Tarkowski gets sold, he might be. Because I tell you what, he's a young lad, and Kevin Long's not the youngest, although Martin Keown seemed to think he was so, and had to be reminded during commentary that Kevin Long's actually in his 30s. But it might be that Dunn might edge him out. I actually thought he played well individually, and I think a lot of Burnley's players played well individually. It was just missing something defensively as a unit, and it's the two centre halves is what was missing.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with sides like Burnley,
you don't have the squad depth.
If they miss anyone from the first 11, you're always going to have difficulties like this, and it got told. Leicester are interesting. Harvey Barnes, massively interesting for me.
So good.
And
it's probably eye test impressed more than anybody over these 2 game weeks, and I think he's impressing people on the numbers as well. Actually, to be fair, I think his XG's pretty high for the season. XG 1.25, XA 0.47. It's very good. He's had 10 shots. I think only 5 players have had 10 shots. That's a lie. 3 players have had 10 shots so far this season. Salah 13, Richarlison 12, Harvey Barnes 10, Antonio 9.
I do want to see if I can get Harvey Barnes into my team. The other that I'm interested in your opinion on is Timothy Castagne. He's returned in the first 2.
The armless hero, as I'm now going to call him. Have you seen his FPL shirt?
Picture.
He's got no arms.
No. Well, I mean, there's quite a few players that are like that. If you
yeah, go and find another one.
No, honestly, I have seen quite a few like that.
Go find one.
I will.
While I start talking. I think he looks very good.
Is he a foil to? Is he an alternative to Ricardo Pereira when he's back?
I don't know what they're going to do. I'm very confused by it. Justin was good, by the way. I was critical of the shape of them last week, not so much him. He was very good, by the way, Justin as well. And those who got him in for game week 1 who've now got the clean sheet, assist and the goal. You've got the trifecta. Very, very well done. He's not on my radar to buy it because I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, they're playing Man City this week as well. I don't know what they're going to do here. It doesn't matter how many times I watch it. It's not making sense to me. Because I think Justin's the right back and Castagna should be covering left back. And then where does Pereira fit in? And are they going to buy a left back? Or what's the reason, which I can't work out yet, and I happily put my hands up and say I can't work it out yet, why he's decided it's Justin at left back rather than Castagna? I haven't worked it out yet. And I don't know if it might even change. So these little things just put me off and concern me, basically. If I was going Leicester now, Harvey Barnes, I think at 7 million.
It's good value.
Yeah, absolutely terrific. The timing's not right because they're playing Manchester City this week, obviously. But, of them 10 shots he's had, all of them inside the box as well. So
threatening positions he's getting into.
He's running at people. He's getting into the area. Really, really good. He's got a lot of ability. I think, if you think back to that restart period, I don't know why he was in and out the team.
Yeah, I think, we asked that question to Aaron Lager, our Leicester correspondent, and he said because defensively, Albrighton tracked back more, and he wanted more stability at the back.
What happened with them and injuries, if they'd have stayed with a back 4, they would have finished top 4. They look so much better like this. That was a fun game to watch the other night. Every time they went forward, to be honest, both teams as well, actually, even when Burnley went forward, you thought they were going to score. Leicester look like they're going to cause damage, and particularly every time Barnes is on the ball. You just have to be conscious that Maddison's going to come back into that team. And, Dennis Pratt doesn't particularly deserve to lose his shirt at the moment. He's got 14 FPL points himself, 5.5 million so far. That feels dangerous to me in comparison to opponents or an Armstrong, for example. So I wouldn't go there. But he doesn't particularly deserve taking out the team. I also thought it was the best I'd seen Yuri Tielemans play in a long time.
That's part of 3/4 of the year. Maybe he's finally back into the game. He's
definitely won pass of the season so far, and that might even be pass of the season. The pass he made for the own goal, where he's reversed it inside the 2 people, literally half a yard left or right, the ball doesn't make it through. Such a good pass. So he was really good as well. Mendy gives him the protection at 4.5, but he's not going to stay there because we know Johnny Evans is going to come back and they need Ndidi back centrally. So it might take a while for Maddison to work his way back in. And the only concern is with that, is there any way that Rodgers thinks, do you know what, I'm going to play Maddison off the left, actually. And they've also obviously got the new winger in as well, Cengiz Ünder.
Yep.
Nicknamed The Undertaker. Yes, there is a wrestling theme to this podcast. The dead man himself even tweeted, makes holes and scores goals or something about this fella. He's a fast winger. He's going to put some threat on, I think, presumably on a Jose Perez, but it's also another reason why you probably need to, oddly enough, see a bit more before you go Harvey Barnes.
See how the team settles.
I think it's one of them. You're not going to go, Harvey Barnes has been great for 2 game weeks. You're not going to look at it and go, now his price is going to go up and it's Man City this week. Now I'm going to buy. No, I think this is one where you're going to say, all right, wish I'd taken a chance at the start. Didn't happen. I'll come back and review it in a couple of weeks where I've got a better understanding of where Leicester are. But yeah, he's high on my radar, just a bit below my priority at the moment.
2 more games to talk about. Aston Villa 1, Sheffield United 0. Let's start with Sheffield United here because they've underwhelmed in both games.
You can't be critical of them yesterday, man.
Well, they missed a penalty. A man's got sent off. You can't
be critical of the team that the man's missed a penalty. I mean, it's a terrible height, but it's also a very good save by the goalkeeper. The red card, I have to say this, right, because nothing has ever come out of Chris Wilder's mouth, I think, has ever been incorrect. But he stood on Sky last night and he said, if I've come out and I'm being an idiot, then someone tell me I'm being an idiot. Chris Wilder, you were being an idiot, mate. For me, it's a red card.
It's a red card.
Genuinely.
It's a red card.
It's a red card.
It's a red card. Watkins was giving him all sorts of trouble. So
he was banging on about to go and view the VAR, which
it's a red
for me,
card.
you can't. On Sky they were going, I don't know how the referee can make the decision. He's too far away. I agree. Linesman didn't help him out, or we don't think that the linesman helped him out because the linesman never put his flag up.
He didn't flag. He didn't do nothing.
But he doesn't mean factually that the linesman didn't go, yeah, mate, tell you what, he's got to go.
Because they do. They're all mic'd up. They're talking
or
to
it
each
could
other
be
all the
that the referee's seen the pool and he's having the conversation with the line and gone, is he clear there? And the linesman's gone, yep. We don't know that conversation factually hasn't happened. Even if he did guess, the referee's reviewed it. It's not a clear and obvious error. On this one, I'm okay with it. Also, the argument for Target to be sent off that he was making is a nonsense.
Nah.
Because he made a genuine attempt for the ball, and that's the rule. And he even said that as the rule.
He felt he wasn't making an attempt for the ball.
But he obviously was making an attempt for the ball. He's going to play the ball because he never even saw Basham was there.
Yeah.
So it was obviously an attempt for the ball.
That wasn't a red card for me at all.
No, the decisions were correct. Sheffield United died for it out there. Fair game to them. You can't judge them from an FPL aspect on this. It's very unfortunate. If you've got John Egan, it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to paint it any differently. I saw one poor guy who he had his team up, and I think he had McCarthy, Lewis, and someone else who'd got 0 over Saturday, Sunday, and he only had Egan to go. And I wish I remembered who it was, because I just thought, wow, you now finished on the -2. You've got all these big scores knocking about. He's got -2 from his defence. And I'm sure there's worse stories out there. I've seen teams with Egan and Lundstrom, for example. So don't just Sheffield United on this. The interesting one, and I tweeted it before the game, was obviously Oliver Burke at 4.5 million. Fascinating that he stayed on for the whole game, because Sheffield United didn't change the front two immediately. They kind of went to a 4-3-2 until they removed McGoldrick. I think it was about half hour in. And I assumed that Burke would go off, lack of fitness, etc. But it might be something in that, in terms of with Mousset injured for a while, we don't know how long. It's an unknown return date. But Sharp, McGoldrick and McBurney don't have any pace to get in behind. Now, if Wilder wants to play with someone that's going to work the channels, and that's probably all we're saying here, then he's possibly going to stay in the team. And the reality is, whether you think he's good, bad, shit or whatever, we're talking about a 4.5 million forward who's potentially playing OOP. And by the way, his fucking Leeds at home this week, and they can't defend.
They can see
what I've seen so far. So genuinely, if you've got a midfield issue, he's not the worst option. I think for those who've got, say, Bissouma, I really just think you should just keep Bissouma. But I think it's one where, perhaps for people like myself, who I wasn't sure, I know what I'm doing now with St. Maximin, I've bought Foden, but I did consider this as a move down that would then allow me the Pereira money up to, say, Harvey Barnes next for something. And I think for those perhaps looking to sell St. Maximin, he's not the worst choice, you know. He's not the worst choice. He'll hold you value for a little bit, a while. Just literally, you can imagine it on the fucking forums on Scout. They'll be all over it. 4.5 OOP for midfield. This year's new Lundstrom. Like, I can see all those things happening. So I don't think he's a bad shout. Do you expect him to return? No, not particularly.
Do you care? No,
but
he's on your bench most of the time, isn't he? Really. So
it could be fun. Yeah, but I think if you're in a position like me where you'd sold St. Maximin for Burke this week, would you play Burke or Souček? You'd have to play Burke. You'd have to take the chance for this particular game week against Leeds. Yeah, you'd have to take the chance.
I don't know. We talked about on Tottenham that if West Ham set up the same way against Wolves, we'll give them a bit more difficulty. So I would play Souček this week, if I'm honest with you. I feel like he's going to be due soon over Burke. And I also think Burke's at high risk of potentially getting dropped, and Souček just completely isn't.
This mouse is fucking brave, you know. That's just it.
Every time he pops out, he doesn't. We need Manchild in the house to just move some of these boxes, open that door, and hopefully the mouse will
There's a bit yesterday, if you watch it on YouTube, we're doing Clash of the Correspondents, and there's a bit where I'm looking beyond the camera and Gary stops talking, and I'm like, oh shit, I need to keep my eye on this mouse. I looked down for half a second, the fucker was gone. And it just did the same to Suj as well. It's only tiny, it's only a baby. Anyway, we're moving studio soon. What do you want, Manchild? It's a little fucker. It's not going to give you COVID or anything, mate. Right, Villa, disappointing.
It's hard to. It's a bit hard to
but
judge. But
you got to credit Sheffield United
10
as well. I just felt like there were certain things that I didn't like. So Sheffield United have the red card, and I think a little bit like Liverpool smelt blood, and we shouldn't compare Liverpool and Aston Villa. Don't get me wrong, but I think Manchild's hunting this mouse. You'll never find it, blood. He's more scared of you than you are of it.
Just pick up the box, Manchild. Let's see. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the podcast. They didn't, in my opinion, smell blood and go for it. So, like, Grealish went to the right. What's that? No. He went to the right after the red card. It just made no sense. Hang on. I want Jack Grealish going and running at people now and committing people and letting them know that they're coming. If there'd been fans in the ground, they'd have been getting a right hump. It was so slow and pedestrian. And to be honest, the goal has come from a set piece, which I'm afraid, I'm sorry, it's not going to make a lot of people happy, but I really want to question the goalkeeper again on this. I think he dives because he thinks he can get there. The spin on the ball means he's not going to get there. But if he takes a step to his right before he dives, I think he saves it quite comfortably. Right? He just dives. And he doesn't like push off his feet for whatever reason. If he actually takes the step to the right, his momentum's then going
that way.
And he'll get there. It's a strange goal. Even the spin on the loop of Ming's header to then the spin from Konsa, who Konsa appeared to pull his hamstring at half time. So for those who own, that would have been an emotional little period, thinking you're getting 1 point, and I think you've ended up with 15. So fair dues to you if you own him.
Yeah, of course. There's not many that do.
We've got Adam Hotcroft on Clash of the Correspondents next week. And I know he's quite positive about Villa. And look, they've played 1-1-1, right? It's a good start. They are better defensively. I feel Sheffield United, 80 minutes with 10 men, is no way to judge them in any way. And so in spite of the fact that they're playing Fulham this week, Villa are not on my radar.
And lastly, we had the Wolves-Manchester City game. So, Kevin De Bruyne's rubbish, mate. If Daniel Podence can nutmeg him like that, then basically he should just be dropped from the Manchester City team. It was funny because Michael Richards was going in the studio, yeah, he was so good. So, like, when we get him on, we're going to talk to him about the nutmeg, innit? No mention of the nutmeg. I mean, he did get absolutely ruined, but, I mean, it probably made De Bruyne's performance about 9.9 out of 10 rather than just a full 10. Honestly, I was 15 minutes into this game, and it was the first time I was like, I have made a mistake. For the first time, genuinely... Listen, you get returns, you don't get returns. I'm sitting there, I'm going, I've made a massive mistake here. Because it didn't matter who the fuck I put in my team. I should have just put that bastard in straight away, is what I should have done. Yeah.
Because I know for me, and it's my circumstance rather than everybody else's, my circumstances, I can't deal with watching him not in my team because he's too good to watch. And I know he's going to have weeks where he's going to blank. I also think he's going to smash his returns from last year because he's on the fucking pens as well now. I really think he'll get close to 300.
And also he's central now. He talks about it himself that he is.
I'd be very, very careful about this.
Yeah.
I highlighted that I thought that in this game, the Leicester game and the Leeds game, that he would probably play in this high position before the international break. I think it might change again afterwards. Why? Because Guardiola likes to overdo things and be clever. But I think yesterday specifically as well was... I need two central midfield players who can sit deep for me, and he's got the best two with Gundogan, obviously not that prick, Rodri and Fernandinho, in terms of protecting the back four, right? Which was, with Wolves, when they win it back, they want to go at you fast, Traore, Podence, all them, they're coming at you, right? So that little bit extra insurance, and it allowed De Bruyne to go on more, and they basically only attacked with four players. I mean, when it's De Bruyne, Sterling and Foden are free in support, you only need to attack with four players, by the way.
Up top.
But there's going to be other games in the future where they're going to play teams who are not going to offer the counter-attacking threat. They're going to sit in more, and De Bruyne is going to play in deeper positions because then there's then more targets for him to aim for from deeper positions. With this one, what you want is exactly what you got yesterday. De Bruyne in off of particularly Neves and Moutinho, basically. I mean, Neto played in the midfield three in the first half last night, played right wing, second half, Wolves changed system. But that's where you want De Bruyne. If he's beyond your deepest midfield player, forget it. Go home, get your coat, it's finished.
What's your thoughts on Wolves? So Jimenez still hasn't had a price rise. Danny Ings has had a price fall. A couple of others in and around have moved. He's still there at 8.5 million. He's at 20.9% ownership. I don't think he's going to go up or down. I think people that are on him are going to stick with him, and I don't think many people will gravitate towards him.
I wouldn't be surprised if I buy Raul Jimenez next week. Not this week, because I've already made my moves. It's not that I don't think he'll score against West Ham. I think he can. I look at the two after that, Fulham and Leeds, and I think
and Newcastle after that.
You could argue that, yeah. I mean, Palace is the 7th, Southampton's the 9th, and you think of the way they counter-attack could be a problem. Leicester away doesn't hold mass fears. Arsenal away doesn't hold mass fears. I think that mouse is behind me, by the way, Suj.
He is as well.
I just saw it out the corner of my eye.
Yeah, he went through the hole where the pipes are.
Oh, there you go. He's fucked off now. By the way, this ain't getting edited or anything.
Nah. The mouse.
So, yeah, I had to fix other things first, but I can see I've spoken about probably coming off one of Fernandes or Martial after this game week. I think I like the idea of Martial to Jimenez as a possibility. That then allows me the Mateus Pereira money up to Harvey Barnes
or whoever
Wilfried
else.
Zaha, yeah. Exactly.
Interesting.
That's where I'm probably thinking at the moment.
If you live in the Twitter bubble that we do...
Podence is in everyone's team already, isn't it?
2.3% ownership.
I mean, it's literally in every team on Twitter, or everybody on Twitter is about to buy him. I'm not.
2-point-something%
but
ownership.
On what you've seen and what I've seen,
decent though.
What I've seen last night,
very good player.
Assist in both games. I mean, that's perfect for 5.5. You're not looking for too much more than that. Anything beyond 5-6 points is great, and you take it. So I think the fact he's got returns against Sheffield United and Man City, and they're about to walk into a very good run of fixtures, means that people are going to go into it.
And you can see why they were happy to let Diogo Jota go to Liverpool. They've got players in Neto, Podence, obviously the new boy that they picked up as well, in the wings, waiting to come through. So,
yeah, this is the only thing. On what you've seen so far, Podence is a brilliant pick. I'm not going to tell anyone otherwise. A couple of things you need to be aware of. So, Fabio Silva obviously came on for his debut last night. He's a young player. He's obviously going to get integrated into the squad. We believe that Wolves have agreed a fee for Nelson Semedo, who's right back at Barcelona. Essentially, he's going to be the Doherty replacement. That's going to free up Traore to probably play back as part of a front three. Now, if Wolves play games like they played last night and starting a 3-5-2, it's probably going to be Traore and Jimenez up front, and Podence isn't going to play. I suspect that Podence at the moment would have the nod over Neto in a 3-4-3. I also suspect, though, that he's the first player to get taken off the pitch.
Substituted.
So I think just things that you need to be aware of. We also think that they are trying to buy a Jota replacement as well.
I mean, they've got a good amount of money for Diogo Jota, £45 million. So
I'd just be cautious of that. But otherwise, if you're happy to go with that and know that those things may happen, it's the same for a lot of clubs may still buy players, right? Then yeah, I can't recommend against him. For me, in my circumstance, I believe that Phil Foden was worth the £1 million more on what I saw last night.
Yeah.
But at 5.5, yeah, he stood out. I mean, you and I have spoke a lot about Armstrong pre-season, and my take on it is Armstrong was a good choice at 5.5 pre-game week 1. He's still a good choice now at 5.4. But I think pressed to it, I'd probably take a chance on this kid, on what I saw last night. Very good. Very good. There's something joyful about him, the directness of him, and I think he senses opportunity. I mean, think of the one-on-one he had with Ederson as well. He should have got a really good return last night. So XG-wise and all that, it shows up for him. Eye test, it shows up for him. If you want to buy a Daniel Podence, buy him. I would just want to make you aware of what's behind and what may be incoming.
Yeah, indeed. What a rundown of a week, James. There's a lot.
I thought Foden was brilliant, by the way. You know what I love about him is something to watch out for. His first touch is always immaculate. Like, if he controls on his right foot, which is his weaker foot, by the time he's controlled the ball, he's already passed the ball with his left foot. He's such a good little player. And if he can add that, exactly like what we saw last night, where he's going to get into them areas, at 6.5, I'll take that. And I also feel, he's obviously going to get left out of the team a fair bit. But at 6.5, I'm less bothered than I would be at the 8.5 for Mahrez, for example.
Yep.
I'm expecting at 6.5 million a lot more blanks. It was really good. And I feel like, to go back, I feel like City's system may change after the international break, but it'll probably stay until then over the next 2 game weeks for me, partly because of the opposition they've got. And I think Foden's very capable of returning them. And I think he'll get a nod at the moment as the right-sided forward. Something's upset Guardiola with Mahrez, because we just got to the point where we all thought he was locked and he's hardly fucking played since.
Yeah, I wonder what it could be.
I've got a clue, mate. Because most of us would play him, right? I completely understand the setup last night, but most of us would move Foden inside, drop one of Rodri or De Bruyne, and play one of them deep. De Bruyne and
Drop
Foden in
one
front.
of Rodri or De Bruyne.
I said the wrong fucking name, didn't I?
Yeah, I was just saying,
Rodri.
drop De Bruyne.
Never play without that geezer. He's the best player in the world, in my opinion.
That's what happens.
Genuinely, he's the best player in the world. He's better than right now. He's better than Messi, Ronaldo. He's the best player in the world.
Messi's got the hump and doesn't run anymore.
There is that.
And Ronaldo's getting on a little bit.
Well, Ronaldo's got Alvaro Morata to play with soon. What must he be thinking at Juventus? Some of these players they're getting linked with. He must be thinking, have you got any ambition, or is it Serie A just that easy to win every year?
Mental.
No, you'd play. I think Rodri deepest, De Bruyne and Foden in front, and get Mahrez then back in the team on the right. That's what we all think is their best team.
Yep. What are you hoping for now? Look, you're 4.4 million odd. I'm 3.7 million. Do you think it's going to affect your end of season ranking?
What am I hoping for? I'm hoping to get news shortly on whether this Tottenham game's on or off. I'm hoping we win on Thursday, and I'm hoping we win on Sunday. Then I'm hoping we win again on Tuesday. It's 4.5 hours to kick off. I don't know if we're playing tonight or not. FPL. Listen, to be honest, watching De Bruyne last night was the first time I actually got bothered about FPL. I was like, oh, I've got to get him in my team. Fuck this shit. I can't do it. Do you know what? Even if he got injured, if say he played in the cup against Bournemouth on Thursday and he got injured, I'd be like, do you know what? I'm okay. I still did the right thing.
Yeah, I get that, and I'm pretty similar from that kind of point of view. But the problem is, obviously, from the listener's point of view, they take the game a bit more seriously than we do. Well, some do. I feel like I was 2 million at like game week 8-9 last year, and still ended up 130k. So 3.7 million at this time of the season, when we suspect that 50% of teams are bots or second teams or third teams.
Oh, we're getting beat by bots, differentials, dead teams, the lot, mate.
Man-child.
57
points last week.
Manchild's not beaten. He beat you. He ain't beat me.
Yeah, he did. Right, before we wrap up this pod, James, should we tell everybody about Thursday?
Yeah, we've got no time for questions. We've been going.
We have been going for an hour and a half. That was
always going to happen. Fucking hell.
We have been going on for an hour and a half.
I blame the fucking mouse.
Yeah. Do you know? Let's test Manchild. Manchild. He's looking at us in the studio. He hasn't got a mic, so he can't respond. What is 499 plus 1?
500.
Manchild got it right. 500 on Thursday. It's Planet FPL 500. We have recorded over 500 bits of audio because we've got Patreon pods and other stuff in between. But of the free podcast that we put out on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, etc., it's episode 500. We're going to have party poppers. We're going to have cake. We're going to have... No, we ain't doing
mice.
nothing.
Ain't no cake in here with a fucking mice.
We ain't doing nothing. But we are recording our 500th episode, and there are people that have listened to every single
sad bastards
one. It's not going to be an FPL show. It'll be a bit of this, bit of that, but it's our 500th extravaganza. James will be putting a tweet out. We're asking you to use the hashtag PlanetFPL500 to tweet in your questions, backstory, bit of non-FPL related stuff, and all of that. We're going to be here. We're going to be ready to record. We might even let Manchild have a little bit of a mic and say a word or two rather than wear his balaclava. It's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. 500 bits of audio in 3 years is no joke.
It might be 1,000 in a year, wouldn't it?
Racking up the milestones.
No, I think 500 is worth celebrating, isn't it?
Yeah, for
Fuck
sure.
it, yeah.
For sure. And for anybody that doesn't think those 500 free podcasts are enough, then head over to patreon.com/planetfpl, where you'll be able to sign up, subscribe to even more content that we produce, a weekly Q&A. You'll notice this show ran on, so we didn't even have time to do any Q&A today, but we do a weekly Patreon Q&A. We do a quiz each and every week. They get exclusive EFL content once a month. We just did a podcast on Brentford and their transfer strategy, and a whole bunch more across the season, Slack channel, etc., etc.
Lots of comps, lots of shit, lots of fun.
It is fun. It really is fun being part of that Planet FPL community.
Planet FPL, sweating, trying to play for fucking rent a kill.
On the way. In the meantime, we do know that COVID cases are rising wherever you may be. So please keep washing your hands. Please keep staying safe.
I'm definitely going to wash them now. See you later.
Ciao for now.
Bye, everyone. Cue music, please, man, child.